Over the years, Mortal Kombat has spawned numerous sequels, become the target of ridicule, spawned a merchandising bonanza, and a feature film. It is one of the longest running franchises in video game history, and it appears to be staying around for some time. Pitting itself against the highly popular Street Fighter II, Mortal Kombat was released in 1992 to be a direct competitor to the Street Fighter series. Originally planned to be a quick project for the Midway staff, no one would know how big the series would become, not even Midway itself. The use of digitized graphics, solid gameplay, and a compelling storyline would have most likely been enough to make the game a success. However, the addition of blood and over-the-top finishing moves would make this game one of the classic arcade games of the early 90s. Ed Boon, one of the creators of the series, has been quoted as saying, "I do not think that Mortal Kombat would have been such a success had it not had any blood in it." Needless to say, I'm sure we're all happy that this was included in the game. Another sign of its overwhelming popularity was the successful release of ports to various consoles. Join us as Retroware TV takes a look at the 3 2D-based Mortal Kombat games released for the home consoles.
Mortal Kombat!
Before we get into the ports, let's talk about the release of Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 1 was released by Acclaim, which was one of the biggest publishers in the early 90s. Acclaim would go on to make one of the most successful promotional video game campaigns in the history of video games. Who can forget September 13th, 1993, Mortal Monday? The advertisements were everywhere. Pick up any gaming magazine during that time, and I can almost guarantee you somewhere there is a Mortal Monday ad. Personally, the ad campaign made me nuts. I was already a huge Mortal Kombat fan, and I couldn't be more psyched for this game to be released. I would be bombarded with ads, previews, and childhood friend discussions all the way up to the game's release. Nothing, however, would compare to this commercial.
Mortal Kombat!
Oh my god, the video still gets me psyched all these years later. The only thing that would irritate me was the fact that the SNES version I was buying wouldn't have any blood in it. Something that still aggravates me to this day. Regardless, I was still pumped for this game. Now let's take a look at some of these console ports. Unknown to a lot of US gamers, there was a Sega Master System version that was released in Europe. When you start the game, you'll find that like the Genesis version, to get any gore in the game, you're going to have to enter a code at the code screen. After that is done, you will be presented with this putrid-looking title screen. It just looks awful. Right off the bat, you'll notice a missing character, Kano. While not my favorite character, it's a shame that he's not in it. The graphics aren't the best, but you have to realize this is on an 8-bit console. So for that being said, I guess it's not too bad. Slowdown is aplenty in this port, but there are these strange bursts of faster than normal speed that occur in the game. The sound in the game is what can be expected from an 8-bit console. There are no voices in the game whatsoever, and the music itself isn't really recognizable. But I guess we're lucky to have any music, really. Although it is so bad that nothing may have been better. Moving on, there are only 2 stages in the game, Goro's Lair and the Pit. These were most likely selected because they consist of mostly one color, gray, and since the Master System isn't known for its extensive color palette, it was probably easier just to use those. And plus, they were most likely running out of room on the cartridge. When I first played this, I was like, oh cool, I can do the Pit Fatality. I wonder what it looks like. But no, you can't do the Pit Fatality at all, nor is it possible to fight Reptile. The controls are pretty unresponsive, as you have to delay any special move you do on the control pad. For example, to do Johnny Cage's Shadow Kick, You have to press back, forward, kick, at approximately that speed. This really opens you up to getting your ass beat. It is also required in order to do the finishing moves. One of the funniest things in this port is that Goro looks like a midget. I mean, Goro was huge in the arcade version, but here he's actually smaller than all the fighters. But just because he's small, doesn't mean he can't handle your ass in like 2 seconds. He's actually really difficult in this port. This guy will throw the hell out of you all of the time. It gets quite annoying. He is so difficult, in fact, this version of Goro makes this port the hardest version of the game. Even though the game is riddled with flaws, for some reason, I enjoy it. I can't even explain it. Now let's talk about the Genesis version. Even though you had to enter the combat code to get it, the inclusion of Goro alone made this the best-selling version of Mortal Kombat on the home consoles. It's far from being a perfect port. The characters' animations are missing a lot of frames, making the characters' movements less fluid. The backgrounds are pretty bland and not as colorful or detailed as the original arcade version. The sound in the Genesis version was also a disappointment. The system really started showing its age when the game came out. It sounds like Acclaim had to redo the music pretty extensively to port this to the Genesis. The result of doing so is a mixed bag of original music mixed with arcade tracks. Gone is the death music that plays before you're about to kill your opponent. The music just keeps playing, making the whole act of killing your opponent less dramatic. It is also missing much of the speech in the game. The game doesn't say the character's name you select at all. It doesn't say fatality when you kill your opponent. And Raiden is missing his yelling during his Superman move. Even Liu Kang is missing his signature yell. About the only voices you hear are Fight, Excellent, and Scorpion's Excellent, which is a must. A big plus for this version was that the controls were very solid and arcade accurate, if you had the 6-button Genesis pad. Remaining true to the arcade port, objects would fly past the moon on the pit stage at random times, allowing you to fight Reptile in the pit. Once you've obtained the double flawless, didn't press block, and performed a fatality. You could enter the Dullard code, making the shadows fly over the moon every time you were on the pit, which in turn made it easier to fight Reptile. The endings are the same as the arcade, showing various pictures that were shown from each character's ending, minus a few colors here and there.